Okay, so this is 10.5b in intermediate algebra, and we are working on example 2 on page 635. Alright, so we found a little bit about where the vertex was. It's on this line somewhere. We're not sure where. We found this point in the last video, and this point and this point. Now we have to find out just how high up this vertex is. So what we did is we take whatever our x value is, and it was -1, and we put -1 in for x. Alright, so whoops, I've got a positive sign in there. This needs to be a negative sign. We're going to look at this one right there. So we have a -1 squared minus 2 times -1 plus 3. So this becomes a -1 plus 2 plus 3. So 5 minus 1 is 4. Okay, so you see what I did there? This negative is this one. -1 is what our x was when we used -b over 2a. Minus 2 times x, which is -1 plus 3. So -1 times -1 is 1. Then put a negative on it. -2 times -1 is +2 plus 3, so that gave us a 4. So that tells us along this dotted line we're 1, 2, 3, 4 up. And there's our parabola. Alright, so there is that one. So let's go ahead and look at the next example. And this will be example 3. And we've got y equals 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. Alright, that's where it crosses the y-axis, so we can just go ahead and put it there. Okay. The x part of the vertex is going to be -b over 2a. So that's going to be negative, and our b is -6 over 2 times a, which is 3. So that gives me a 6 over 6, which gives me 1. Okay, so now I have a vertical line at 1 to the right of the origin, because that's what x is. Now I take the 1, plug it in there to find out how high that vertex is along that line. So that's going to be -3 plus 1 is -2. So along that line I'm going to be at -2. There's my vertex. Okay, so not too hard to find the vertex. And I also found out where it crosses the y-axis, and notice that it's 1 to the left there, so I know there's another point right there, 1 to the right. So we'll put that point there. Now what I'm interested in doing is finding out where it crosses the x-axis. Alright, so it crosses the x-axis at 3x squared minus 6x plus 1 equals 0. So we just put a 0 in there for y. Alright, so we can't solve this using regular old factoring. So what we're going to end up doing is using the quadratic formula in order to find out where it crosses the x's. But the way I do this is, since we're just sketching just means somewhat accurate, I'm not going to find out where it crosses the x line. I could by using the quadratic formula and finding my two answers, and that's where it's going to cross, but for these, it's just go ahead and do what I just did. You found out a few of the points, and that was really all that's necessary. Okay, so let's look at actually, we're just going to look at one more, and then the rest of them are story problems, which I am skipping, and I can guarantee we will be doing those next year. So let's go ahead and do example number 4. So we have y equals negative 2x squared plus 6x minus 5. Alright, so we know that it crosses the y-axis at minus 5. Right there. Pretty easy to do. And then we're going to use x equals negative b over 2a to find out where our vertical dotted line is, the one of the parts of the vertex, the x part. So we're going to put negative b over 2a, which is going to be negative 6 over negative 4, which is 6 over 4, which is 3 halves. Well, that doesn't look so much fun, but let's go ahead and graph 3 halves, because it's really not that hard. 3 halves is really 1 1/2, so it comes over 1 1/2 in between 1 and 2 there. Okay, now let's take that 3 halves and plug it in here for x, and that'll tell us how far up or down we are. Three halves squared is 9 over 4. 18 over 2 minus 5. This is going to be negative 18 over 4 plus 9 minus 5. 18 over 2 is 9. Y equals negative 18 over 4 plus 4. I need common denominators, so this will be negative 18 over 4, and this will be 16 over 4, which is going to give me negative 2 over 4, which is negative 1/2. That's y is negative 1/2. That means I'm going to cross, or my vertex is going to be along here down at 1/2, so right in there between 0 and 1. So let's go ahead and make that dot there. And this sign in front of here tells me it's going to go this way. You know, it's going to open down. And I also can find out from this point, see, I'm 1 1/2 over here, so if I go 1 1/2 over here, I found that one. Now when I graph this, notice what happens here. The graph does not cross the x-axis at all. That means that when you put it in the quadratic formula, if you were to do the quadratic formula, you would get no answer. You would not get x equals anything, because this graph doesn't cross the x-axis, so nothing happens. You would get an answer that doesn't work, like you'd get an imaginary number, like an I. So anyway, that's pretty much it for 10.5. And for problem set 10.5, it says for each of the following equations, give the x-intercepts and the coordinates of the vertex and sketch the graph. So when you're doing that, you're finding the information that you would need in order to do it on page 633 at the bottom of the page. You'd find the y-intercept, the x-intercepts, and the vertex in order to graph it. That's 1 to 12, 13 through 20, find the vertex, and any two convenient points to sketch the graph. So you would find the vertex and maybe the, oh man, there's a lot of sirens that go past this place. The vertex and any 2 points, so vertex and maybe the y-intercept, or the vertex and maybe the x-intercepts by using the quadratic formula. 21 to 28, you are finding the coordinates of the vertex, and then tell me whether the vertex is the highest point on the graph or the lowest point on the graph. And remember, it's going to be the highest point on the graph, the vertex, if this is negative. If this is positive, the vertex will be the lowest point on the graph, because this means that it's opening down. So if that's negative, what is the highest part on the graph? The vertex. If it were this way, what's the lowest point on the graph? The vertex. Okay, so if this is negative, it's the highest point. If this is positive, it's the lowest point. And that's it for lesson 10.5.